Ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon. Welcome to our online side event for women participation of young women and girls. We are nowhere near being it. I am your host. My name is Mamelo Machele. I'm a She Decides young leader. I'm also a nurse midwife who works in the rural area of Lesotho to promote maternal health. I advocate for legal abortions in the country. I advocate for accessibility of family planning contraceptives. At this moment, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to welcome our distinguished guest, Dr. Khan, Dr. Stephanie, Dr. I'm sorry if I pronounce this wrong, Ms. Shrekhard, our youth activist, Vodi, Julia, Rahil. I welcome you all. At this moment, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to welcome Ms. Shrekhard to give her opening remarks. Ms. Shrekhard is the head for subdivision for Gender Equality Germany, Federal Ministry for Gender Equality Germany, Senior Citizens, Youth and Women. I welcome you, Ms. Shrekhard.
Thank you very, very much. A very warm hello from snowy and sometimes sunny Berlin, Germany. And my name is Birgit Schweikert, and I'm a representative of this wonderful Federal Ministry for Family Affairs, Senior Citizens, Women and Youth. And I would also like to welcome you very warmly to this side event organized by Plan International. And I'm truly delighted to speak to you today. We as the German federal government share the assessment by Plan that young women and girls too rarely influence the way politics and social norms are developing in their community and society. A mere 23% of all members of parliament worldwide are women, and only about 2% of all members of parliament worldwide are under 30. However, it would be extremely important that young people, and especially women, can find role models in politics so that these groups will no longer be underrepresented. I have to say that we in Germany at the moment do not serve as the best example when it comes to political participation of young people and women. At the moment, only 12 of over 700 members of the German Bundestag, that is the German parliament, are under 30 years of age. And 11 out of these 12 people under 30 are men. Only about 31% of all members of parliament in Germany are women. This is the lowest proportion of women in the German parliament since over 20 years. So we are experiencing a kind of backlash referring to the political participation of women in Germany. And this also shows, from my point of view, that the fair participation of women in politics all over the world is not a matter of a steady progress, but it is a daily challenge that goes on. And in Germany, more than over 100 years after the introduction of female suffrage in Germany, which we have celebrated with our female Chancellor Angela Merkel in 2019. One reason for the declining proportion of women in German politics, and I think it's not only in German politics, is that the women who are already committed experience digital and analog violence and harassment. And that is because they are women. And this was currently outlined in a survey carried out by a German leading political magazine, Spiegel. And the magazine asked all female members of the German parliament whether they have experienced misogyny. And the answers are alarming. Almost 70% of the interviewed women said that they have witnessed misogyny as parliamentarians. Over 60% have received hate messages. Over 30% have been attacked personally, or their offices or homes have been attacked. And being aware of these numbers, it is no surprise that you can ask yourself as a woman, and especially as a young woman, whether political engagement is a good idea. And I would like to tell you, yes, of course, it is a good idea. We do not allow these figures to discourage us. I think change is not only possible, it is necessary, and we have to demand and speak and act for change, especially for a gender-fair society. And to speak with the great French feminist lady Simone de Beauvoir, women who don't demand anything were taken seriously. They won't get nothing. So for change to happen, however, it is important that we especially take young women's and girls' points of view seriously and involve these age groups in all social areas. Plan International serves as a very good example when it comes to incorporating young people's ideas by means of your global youth advisory panel, as well as the national youth advisory panels, which are installed in over 40 countries. Plan involves young people worldwide in its decision-making processes. We as a German federal government expressly welcome all measures aiming at increasing young people's social participation. And in this context, we pay particular attention to implementing gender equity. We want to encourage young women and girls to participate in social processes. So for a short example, we started a very good working program, a nationwide cross-party network advocating for more women in politics. And we have two empowerment programs within this college. One program is exclusively for female students at universities, and the other empowerment program is for female migrants who are already active in a political party, to encourage them to become a candidate or to be elected to parliament. Part of this college is also a prize, and 1/3 of the winners of the last prize in 2020, who were awarded for outstanding political commitment, were under the age of 40. And I think this sends out a clear message that the political commitment of younger women in Germany is recognized. In looking for increasing social participation of young women, we have to see as well that there are still very powerful stereotypes being a great obstacle preventing this kind of participation. And unfortunately, these stereotypes are particularly visible in social media, which are extensively used by young people. And Plan International was active and had surveyed younger men and women on this topic. And it turned out that the more the survey participants use social networks, the more they stick to traditional gender roles. Young women tend to be particularly successful in social media when they cover topics such as fashion, beauty, food, and lifestyle. and topics such as politics, business are mainly covered by male influencers. And sadly enough, in social media, traditional gender representations receive a lot of recognition within the community. I think this will have to change too, and here we have to take joint action, and I hope we will exchange and spread innovative and very good ideas. I think it's important that government worldwide also support projects taking action against gender stereotypes in the media. In Germany, we are also very active in that respect. We're funding a project so-called Gender Easy by the German Association of Women Journalists, which promotes gender-sensitive language in the media. We have another project, School Against Sexism, with a very innovative NGO, Pink Stings, which uses videos and posts on Facebook and Instagram to make people critically challenge gender stereotypes. And there is a very good project, Share Your Power, by the NGO Pro Quota Film, which advocate the development of a diverse and gender responsive media industry. So I'm very much looking now to the good ideas of young activists of Greta and Lou and Julia and Rahila. And I am very certain that debates like this and your combined energy can make a contribution to strengthening young people's and women's social participation worldwide. And I would like to encourage you all to continue making your voices heard. And at the very least, I would like to use Amanda Gorman's wonderful words during the inauguration of the new US president this year. Once girls can see it, girls can be it. Thank you very much, and I hope for your combined power.
Thank you very much for the representation of young girls and women. It's a global issue, and indicating how the Federal Republic of Germany is actually putting in strategies to mitigate that challenge. I thank you. At this juncture, allow me, ladies and gentlemen, to just say a few technical issues. There'll also be a Spanish and French interpretation as our discussion unfolds, and also there will be a question and answer feature at the end of the presentation. Thank you. At this moment, allow me to introduce Julia, who will be our first speaker. Julia is a 19-year-old youth activist from Guatemala. Due to lack of sufficient economic resources, no one in her family has gone beyond the 3rd grade of education. For this reason, she did not hesitate when she was asked to join the Mayan youth movement and to participate in the Plan International Guatemala School of Political Empowerment and Leadership for Indigenous Girls, Adolescents, and Young Women. Ms. Julia, the stage is yours to give a few introduction. Thank you.
Y me Julia Ventura y con 19 años. Soy Julia Ventura, tengo 19 años, soy maya quiché, nací en la comunidad de Laguna Seca, Quiché, Guatemala. Soy voluntaria en proyectos de Mojomaya, movimiento de jóvenes mayas, porque conozco las necesidades, posiciones y condiciones en las que nos encontramos miles de niñas y adolescentes en mi país. ¿Qué significa ser una niña indígena en Guatemala? Implica una condición de exclusión que hace muy difícil que alcancemos nuestros sueños, que podamos gozar de derechos básicos como la salud, la educación y una vivienda digna. Trabajamos desde el campo, desde muy pequeñas, para colaborar con nuestras familias. La participación no es una prioridad para nosotros. En mi caso, he migrado 12 horas lejos de mi casa y de mi familia a trabajar en una tienda de alimentos básicos para poder ayudarlos, dejando por un lado mi sueño de ser una cantautora, pero sin embargo sigo participando a distancias en el proyecto. Esto no significa que el voluntariado no podamos cambiar la realidad. La sociedad espera que nosotras, las niñas indígenas, seamos madres y esposas desde temprana edad. Y a las autoridades parece no importarles esta situación. Por eso, a pesar de mi propia condición, He decidido no ser madre adolescente ni casarme aún, sino informar a otras chicas que luchen por sus sueños, que forman lideresas, que luchen junto a mí por la igualdad de género. Ser indígena para mí es parte de mi origen y de mi identidad. Y no es posible que esto me limite como condición a no cumplir mi proyecto de vida. La desigualdad de las niñas comienza desde el nacimiento y continúa a lo largo de la vida. Los roles que nos imponen, la violencia es parte de la realidad de miles de niñas y mujeres, ya que en mi comunidad y país hay miles de embarazos y miles de adolescentes que no pueden tener un proyecto de vida. Me uní al proyecto del 2018, desarrollando mis habilidades y dando a conocer a otras chicas sobre los derechos de la niñez y de la mujer, donde hombres y mujeres merecemos el mismo trato, la misma justicia y la misma equidad de género. Hay mucho por hacer y por trabajar con las niñas y mujeres y nuestra identidad y cultura. Alzo la voz para que los derechos de los adolescentes indígenas sean respetados desde nuestra cosmovisión. Autoridades que nos escuchan, necesitamos cambios estructurales en nuestros países y en Latinoamérica, y que apoyen movimientos como el que yo represento, que busca la igualdad de derechos. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Julia, I'm actually impressed by your ability to be the voice of the voiceless and actually to take a stand to speak up about issues that affect you, and for actually not sitting back to say, I'm a young person, so I cannot speak up. Thank you for encouraging other young people to speak up and demand a seat at the table so that their voices can be heard. Thank you so much. At this moment, I'll welcome Ms. Greta to give her introduction. Ms. Greta is a 22-year-old and has been a member for Plan International Germany as advisory panel since 2017. So she says, so Ms. Greta, the stage is yours.
Thank you. I'm here because I want my voice and the voice of young feminists to be heard, but I also want you to listen. I'm not here so you can check off youth participation off your list. Youth participation is not just a nice to have, because this leads us nowhere. Instead, we demand to be treated as equals in every political, economic, and social context. Right now, only 2% of all members of parliament worldwide are female and under the age of 30. That is not a surprise, because many young women have to do care work and thus cannot participate in politics. More than 50 million children aged 5 to 14 perform unpaid care work, which of course has negative impacts for them. Care work isn't even considered an economic contribution and not calculated towards the GDP. This trend can even be observed in Germany, where most of the unpaid care work is done by women. And even here, we are discussing youth participation, yet the CSW's main theme neglects girls and young women. They didn't even consider us. That's why we need a change of structures and norms. Education for young people on how decisions are made is crucial in order to take part in decision-making. We cannot change what we don't know. Meaningful participation requires funding. Most young activists' engagement is unpaid and voluntarily, but we have to take income, class, and other factors into consideration. These factors cannot dictate who can participate and who cannot. Our time and energy must not be taken for granted. In order to achieve meaningful participation, it needs to be institutionalized. In addition to funding, we also need a change of internal structures and mindsets. We demand that youth participation becomes an integral part of governmental institutions. We don't want to fight to participate every single time. Let me be very clear. I'm sick of not being taken seriously. I'm sick of people applauding me for raising my voice, but not recognizing it is equally important. I don't need people to be happy about me having an opinion. I need them to take it into account. Participation is a learning process for all of us. We can all benefit from true youth participation. We need each and every one of you to make this change happen. Just like women can't fight alone for gender equality, Us young people can't stand alone in our fight for meaningful youth participation. Thank you.
Thank you so much for highlighting the biasness in fair representation of women in parliament, that 23% of parliamentarians are women globally, and that 2% of that are under the age of 30, and actually highlighting what needs to be done in terms of ensuring that there is women and younger participation in parliament. Thank you so much. At this moment, allow me to call Rahil. Rahil is a 22-year-old lady and is currently in charge of the administrative of the Girls Movement, which campaigns for gender equality in Togo. Ms. Rahil. Rahil.
Oui, bonjour. Je suis Rahil Nijiawa, je suis activiste des droits humains et spécialement ceux des filles et des jeunes femmes au Togo. Je suis la chargée à l'administration du mouvement Girls Motion. En termes de participation de la femme aux instances décisionnelles dans mon pays, 28% de femmes sont représentées dans les instances décisionnelles, ce qui est largement en deçà de la moyenne, vu que les femmes représentent au Togo 51% de la population. Et les causes de cela, on peut noter qu'en réalité, lorsque les femmes s'engagent en politique, elles sont sous-représentées parce que, les partis politiques dans lesquels elles militent ne font pas leur promotion, et les partis dans lesquels, et lorsque les partis décident de faire leur promotion, la plupart du temps, on les laisse en bas de liste. Et lorsque les votes sont faits, même si le parti gagne, elles ne sont pas favorablement positionnées dans la sphère politique. Et les causes de cela, on remarque qu'en réalité, on vit dans une société qui considère que la femme ne doit pas avoir la capacité de décider, parce que celui qui a le pouvoir de décider va décider forcément en sa faveur. Et lorsque les femmes n'ont pas donc ce pouvoir de décider, il y a donc un certain nombre de décisions que les instances décisionnelles prennent qui ne vont pas forcément en leur avantage. Et à mon sens, ce qui est à faire pour changer les paradigmes, c'est revoir les politiques, et 2, imposer aux partis politiques qui présentent leur liste de bien positionner les femmes. Et si cela n'est pas fait, qu'on rejette la liste ou on leur dise de bien positionner les femmes avant que la liste soit reçue. Et au-delà de ces conditions-là, ou bien de ces éléments-là qui sont externes, la femme elle-même doit pouvoir en réalité se former, parce que qui dit accès aux instances décisionnelles dit donc compétences à avoir pour pouvoir prendre les décisions adéquates. Donc, au-delà des politiques qui doivent changer, les femmes elles-mêmes doivent se former, comprendre qu'en réalité, que pour pouvoir accéder à ces instances-là, c'est tout un processus, et que l'on nous enseigne au plus tôt qu'en réalité, on peut le faire, mais à condition qu'on ait les capacités et les compétences nécessaires pour le faire. Donc, c'est ce que j'ai à dire. Merci.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for highlighting that women need a seat at the decision-making level. Women should be granted the autonomy to voice their opinions, and women should be given the space and the skills and the knowledge to enable them to fully participate at the parliamentarian level. Thank you so much. At this time, I'll introduce Vodi. Vodi is a 24-year-old. She's a core-member of the Young Women Leadership Network. She has participated in many activities and events on women's rights and gender equality. Vodi, the stage is yours.
Hello everyone, greetings from Cambodia. I'm Darawati. Currently, I'm working as core team of Young Women Leadership Network, YWLN. We focus on encouraging and empower girls and young women. In my opinion, family burden, lack of encouragement, and gender stereotype are obstacles for Cambodian girls and young women who want to participate in politics and social activity. From my experience, When I haven't participated in social activity, I have a negative image of political and volunteer participation. My family and friends always told me that it is a dangerous job, especially it is a woman's job. It's not a woman's job, it's a man's job. I remember one day I saw a famous politician, Hillary Clinton, on TV. I was so inspired by her ambitious and powerful look. I immediately spoke out that I want to be like her in the future. My family looked at me surprisingly and said, "Don't dream too big. As a girl, I think you cannot do it." I was so disappointed and started to question myself what women can do and why we cannot do it. After that, that's a reason why I decided to join YWN when I graduated from bachelor degree last 3 years ago. Even my background was another field and I didn't know anyone who's worked in NGO or social project before. After I joined for a while, my colleague asked me why I waste my time on volunteer job. You should let it to people who work in NGO or older people responsible for it. Moreover, after my family saw a radio show that I joined as a guest speaker on topic women in development, they didn't directly ask me to stop, but they worry about my safety, and they convinced me to not do it anymore. That's a moment that I was hesitant between giving up or continue. But then I committed to work more harder to show them the result of what I'm believing. Consequently, now my family and friends, they understand and support my work. My colleagues thank me to make them see the change and they try to break it in their way. There's still far way to create a fair world for women, but I believe that it starts from a person who's there to point out a problem, find solution, and encourage girls and young women to be involved because we are nowhere nearby being part of it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Woody, for sharing your inspirational personal story. Thank you so much. And I really hope whatever you shared will encourage other young people to speak out their truth and stand out. At this moment, I will introduce Dr. Stephanie Fentrick. Dr. Stephanie is a division for European and International Gender Equality Policy, Federal Ministry for Family Affairs, Senior Citizens, Women and Youth, Germany. Dr. Stephanie.
Thank you very much. It's very inspiring to hear your stories and of course to hear your demands also. So I'm here today not only to talk, but more than anything to listen, of course. All these examples show that youth inclusion and gender equality will not come automatically. We all have to speak up for it. Women, for instance, in Germany are still paid less than men. Young women often complete their education with better grades than men, but if you look on their income later on, you will notice that here women gain 18% less per hour, and that is on average. Compared to men, women still work more hours in unpaid work, care work and household work, but they work less in paid employment. Also in Germany, it is still mainly women who work part-time. In 2018, nearly 50% of all women in working age here were working in part-time, but only 11% of men. Only about 1/3 of all mothers with at least one child under the age of 3 went to work at all. And here I mean paid work. Of the fathers, it was nearly 90%. We know that most young parents would prefer to share their responsibilities more equally. And therefore, we are continuously working on creating good regulations and good infrastructure to support them and their children. For instance, regulations on paid parental leave to care for the youngest children in Germany explicitly supports the inclusion of fathers as well. And we also have a law that children have the right to get a place in kindergarten from the age of 1. You can find similar gender equalities all over the world, and that is why I think it's necessary to stand up for gender equality, and it's necessary to include women and men from all ages and from all over the world in this debate. There are many ways to speak up, and there are many ways to become politically active, online, in civil movements, in NGOs, or in political parties. Being here and having the opportunity to talk to you and to talk to each other from all over the world, I think is one of these great new opportunities. Women and young people, as you said before, are traditionally underrepresented in political parties and in power structures. Often they prefer to engage in other ways, for instance, in NGOs, in civil movements, or by supporting local initiatives. Nevertheless, it's also worth having a look at the traditional structures of political representation. According to the latest data, internationally, in 2021, only 6% of the elected heads of states and 7% of the heads of government are women. And the number of countries in which women hold 50% or more of the ministerial positions has even dropped from 14 last year, which was not a lot anyway, to 13 now. And as we heard from Birgit Schweikert before, on a worldwide average, only 1/3 of the members of parliament are women. And we heard also that even less of them are young women. And the path to these positions, of course, will lead in most cases through political parties. And we know that these are the gatekeepers to political decision-making and to political positions of power. As we know, party structures and procedures are often not shaped to fit the needs of young women. And we heard also that the way there will not be paved automatically for the inclusion of women and for the inclusion of young people. So women have to demand it continuously everywhere in the world. But there are also attempts of parties to be more inclusive. For instance, some parties offer mentoring programs for young people. Some offer childcare during political meetings, and other parties introduced binding quotas for the electoral lists. Here in Germany, we've actually made good experiences with mentoring programs. And if there's no official program, I think it's a good idea if young women can find themselves a mentor, somebody who's inspiring them and who's supporting them. And they can build networks with other people who support the same idea. And they maybe even can find a party or an existing NGO that is supporting the idea. And of course, last but not least, they can always use their influence as voters. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Stephanie, for highlighting the challenges that women face every day. Like they have to put in more hours to do work, and yet in return get low wages as comparatively to men. And thank you for highlighting that as young girls, we need a mentor-mentee relationship, and actually highlighting ways on how we can all amplify our voices to achieve gender equality. Thank you so much. At this moment, I'll introduce Dr. Khan. Dr. Khan is the head of Division Education, Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development, Germany. Dr. Khan.
Mrs. Kuhn, you're still muted.
Okay, I was so not nervous, so happy about speaking to you. So again, welcome, and it's really very, I'm very honored to speak to you. And it's good that I'm the last speaker, because I take into account what you have said before, and I will go into this. I'm in the development ministry, and I will look a little bit in the broader, on the global scene, and this helps me a lot what has been said before. So first of all, I would say we are just some days from International Women's Day, March 8. We celebrate so many years. But what has happened, there's not a lot of success, and you were telling us from the ground, young girls, how you really see the world, what happens, and how encouraged or not encouraged, as we heard from 40. And this Women's Day and all women are girls before. And in many countries, what my colleagues from the ministry said, in Germany, it's even in a lot of cases better than in other countries. And if I have listened carefully, nobody so far had even said that with COVID-19, things get worse. Every day, this is what we see. And I will turn to the development ministry. We see that with the COVID-19 pandemic, women and girls enjoy fewer rights and they receive less recognition in many countries. And they have additional work with homeschooling, the lockdowns, and looking after their families. Many girls we know in so-called developing countries will never return to school. They will get rights early and will have children at an early age. They will not have the sanitation needed. And we heard from Julia what her situation as indigenous persons. But looking ahead, what are we doing from our development ministry? First, I would like to stress that we are really interested in realizing rights. Greta said it so clearly. I want to be listened, and I really enjoyed listening you, Greta, because it's right what you are asking and what you are claiming. So we are looking what is in the Convention of the Child, and in these days we are also establishing a youth council. I will say words afterwards. So we want to make our minister listening to young voices, because young voices, you have so much to say. We have seen several years ago, it was Greta Thunberg, a young girl, changing a little bit the discussion on climate. It was not elderly politicians, elderly men. No, it was a young girl raising the voice. With this, maybe I can stop. I want to encourage all of you because we want to enter in the discussion. And I think please keep on, keep the pressure, ask the politicians and let your voices heard. We have also the SDG 5, you know this, the Sustainable Development Goal, giving you all the rights, asking for it. And maybe I will finish with this. We are now also working on a big initiative from our ministry. It's called She, like she, support her education, and we will look into the developing countries to give more money and more support for education for young girls, because it's their voices we want to hear. With this, I stop right now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kuhn, for highlighting the challenges that the COVID-19 pandemic has put on gender equality, especially taking into consideration that young girls across the globe do not have access to education. And this is a fact for majority of young girls, especially in the African context, that young girls that live in the rural areas of African continent, like my country in Lesotho, do not have access to information, do not have access to smartphones, do not have access to education. And I'm particularly impressed by the fact that the Federal Republic of Germany is actually looking into funding developing countries like mine to ensure that young girls' education needs are considered. Thank you so much. At this juncture, I will allow question and answer session. And my first question will go to Julia. Ms. Julia, which impact does the corona pandemic have on the political participation of girls and young women, especially in your context as an indigenous young girl in Guatemala?
Muy bien. Lo que ha causado la pandemia aquí en Guatemala, más a las niñas indígenas, es la educación, recursos económicos, porque desde que la pandemia afectó a Guatemala, muchos padres de familia se encuentran lejos de sus familias, unos que se quedaron sin trabajos, y muchos de aquellas niñas se juntaron desde ese entonces. Entonces ahora hay muchas señoritas que ya tienen, que están embarazadas, ya están esperando un hijo por medio de la pandemia, que se juntaron a temprana edad. Muchos de ellos ahora hay muchos niños que sufren la desnutrición por la falta de alimentos, por medio de la pandemia, que ya no han tenido trabajo para comprar alimentos básicos, la falta de vestimenta, una vivienda digna. Lo más que causó Guatemala son la tormenta que acaba de pasar. Afectó a tanta familia, dejó a tanta familia sin casa, sin nada. Eso es lo que está afectando a Guatemala en toda esta pandemia. Gracias.
Thank you, Julia, for highlighting the impact of the COVID-19 in your country. The next question will go to Ms. Rahil. Ms. Rahil, does the shift in the digital world lead to creating new spaces for political participation of girls and young women? Ms. Rahil?
Oui, je suis là. C'est bon, je pense. Oui, je pense que l'espace numérique ou l'Internet a donné un autre pan d'expression aux filles et aux jeunes femmes, surtout avec la pandémie où les rassemblements sont interdits. L'usage de l'Internet est en quelque sorte un moyen d'exprimer ses idéaux, d'exprimer ses réprobations ou d'exprimer un certain nombre de besoins. Certes, l'Internet est une opportunité, mais on s'est rendu compte que à travers l'utilisation de l'Internet, il y a eu une autre forme de violence qui a été créée, notamment la violence sur le net. On s'est rendu compte que ces filles-là ou ces jeunes femmes-là qui exprimaient leurs idéaux en ligne, se sont retrouvées être harcelées. Et on se retrouve carrément à dire à ces jeunes filles-là qu'elles n'ont pas le droit de dire ci, qu'elles n'ont pas le droit de dire ça, parce qu'un certain nombre de normes et de croyances interdit que la fille ou la jeune femme pense comme cela. Donc, l'Internet a été certes une opportunité, mais elle a été également source d'un autre type de violence qu'est le harcèlement en ligne.
Thank you, Ms. Rahil, for demonstrating how digital work can also be a benefit and also as a source for harassment for young girls in the spaces. Thank you so much. My next question goes to Greta. Ms. Greta, in your view, which obstacles hinder girls and women from fully participating?
Yes, thank you. So I think I've touched on a couple of these aspects already before. So I think one major issue is that there's just not a societal or political recognition that youth participation is important and crucial and also beneficial for everyone. And as a result of that, we're just not being taken seriously. It's like, okay, yeah, you're doing something nice, we applaud you, but we're not going to take into consideration what you're saying, what your demands are. So they just don't, the politicians on that side, they don't consider us as equals. And then I think another point is that there's just no will to actually change something, because in the end, it's mainly up to politicians to want to change something. And of course, if they don't want to do it, then we can keep pushing and pushing. But of course, it would be much easier if they would just want to change as well and help us on this end. And yeah, another point is, as I've already said, that there are no institutionalized opportunities. And I think this is also something that politics can do, that young women, young people have an institutionalized system where they can participate and where their voices can be heard. And I think another important point is that many young women may have a lower self-esteem because they're just being pushed down by society and politics. So they are fighting, but they're not being acknowledged. And I think that's a very negative effect. Thank you.
Thank you so much for highlighting these issues that hinder women political participation. And I particularly love the fact where you talk of low self-esteem, because it's an issue that doesn't only happen in our country, but I believe in most countries like my country, where culturally a woman is supposed to be submissive. A woman does not have to exercise her rights. A man has to make a decision for a woman. So thank you for highlighting these issues. So the next question will go to Vodi. Vodi, in your view, why do girls and young women demand more participation? What do they have to achieve through increased participation? And only if you can give example of successful participation of girls and women can already be stated. Thank you.
Why girls and young women demand more participation? For me, I think because women need more women representative to promote gender equality, fighting fairness, and to be wherever the decision made by women. Because the decision that we make by women is effective to our life, all of our lives. And the second one, what we hope from the participation and the example of success. I can show you some example from people that I know. Some of organizations, NGO in Cambodia, some NGO that lead by women leader, they think beyond physical, but emotionally caring and apply inclusive concept for women. And also, in opposite, I want to show you the problem that just happened in Cambodia last week. In Cambodia last week, one police woman, she posted a photo of her giving breastfeeding in public. And then her superior asked her to public apologize that her action give impact affected to dignity of Khmer women. Because in Cambodia, we have a women code of conduct. And that is a problem that all girls and young women want to break the chain to promote gender equality and to promote gender equality and also to break the chain that hold us by ourselves. Thank you. Back to you.
Thank you so much for sharing that inspirational story of what happened in Cambodia. The next question will go to Dr. Kuhn. Dr. Kuhn, what can a large donor country like the Federal Republic of Germany do to strengthen girls and women political participation, especially in the field of development policy?
So now you can hear me, yes?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I already started when answering the first question. I think we can do a lot. First of all, we can empower young persons, and this is what we do. What we do also now with, I will say some words with our advisory council of the young persons. We were just electing these persons, these young persons. We had we had an action plan several years ago, because we took these women, these girls and young persons' rights. So yeah, we took them for a real to do something, and this was really a good process, because we spoke so much with young persons in the last time, and in doing this advisory council now, having all this discussion, I learned so much from young persons. And what you were just saying here in this meeting, I would really like to empower you. We need your voices, and you have to be listened, because it's your world too. It is your parts, and you are a part of a part of the sustainable world. We as politicians, or our politicians, and we as the administrations, have to create now. This is asked by us for the 2030 agenda, and this is really good to have your voices. And I think now the voices will be heard, and I think young people, they will ask for exactly what you are telling us here in this meeting. What is important for young girls? That will be about sanitation, what you also said from South Africa, what is about indigenous young girls. And there's so many insights, and I will also expand a little bit. We will have 60 members in this youth council, and we had also the idea, and we will have this. There is people, young persons from 14 to 24 years old, and it's young girls and young boys, and also LGBTI. So we really look for diversity, because we think, and I would come back what Greta said, if we have these decisions, persons participated, they are better because they are more inclusive. The scope of it is to have better decisions, because we listen to everybody and we take into account all the ideas. This is what we can do, and a lot will also be done on education and empowering. This is what I said also before. Education is the key. We heard this also from Julia. And please do not stop asking for your rights and going to school or lectures. You will learn a lot, and then you will be stronger to raise. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kuhn. I understand that the German Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development has recently established a youth advisory panel that you have already spoken about. So my question is, do the youth advisory panel have accountability board where they can say, we have raised our grievances, we need our voices to be heard? Do we have an accountability plan to say, after so many years, this will be implemented?
Yeah, coming back to the council, this is just in the in the moment of establishing it. So it will just start. We have just made the selection of these 16 young boys and some candidates if somebody goes out, and they will start their work in this summer. First, there will be an inauguration, but then the moment once they are there are regular meetings, and we will meet with all the hierarchy in the ministries, and our staff will also have to answer to the questions of a young person. And this is the new thing. We're also asking for, you want to be listened, you want to be heard, and this is what we are installing now. And I'm happy that finally we are at the end of this process, which is just a start in a better and more participatory world. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kuhn. Our voices are heard because we are part of the sustainable development. Thank you so much. My next question will be addressed to Dr. Stephanie. Dr. Stephanie, how does the German government strengthen participation of girls and young women in their national policies?
Thank you very much. Of course, also for us, the inclusion of the perspective of young people, young women and young men, young people from all genders is very important to make decisions that will shape the future of politics in Germany. In the German ministries, we try to include the views of young people by offering more open formats for participation. Most importantly, last December, the Federal Cabinet of Germany adopted a joint strategy a joint youth strategy, which is called Shared Responsibility, Politics for, with, and by Youth. The strategy is a commitment of all the ministries to involve younger people in their decisions. It describes the current situation in 9 youth-relevant fields for action, such as education, health, diversity, and environmental politics. It lists more than 150 measures to be taken, and now the task, of course, is to realize these measures. In order to continuously develop a common approach, an interministerial working group has been set up, and also an advisory council of our ministry, which is the Ministry for Women, but also the Ministry for Youth at the same time, ensures the involvement of civil society and youth organizations. Very important milestones for the participation of young people have been the Youth Policy Days, which have taken place in May 2019 in Berlin with 450 young women and men from all over Germany that came together with representatives from different ministries. In this dialogue with politics and administration, the young people developed concrete recommendations for this joint youth strategy of the government. This dialogue has been continued with the Federal Youth Conference that took place in September 2020. And due to coronavirus, it was, of course, digital as well. And the next highlight in this row will be the Youth Policy Days in May 2021. In line with this youth strategy, the government has explicitly focused on COVID-19 related challenges for the younger generation as well, and has discussed with young people in different dialogue formats. And my colleagues from the youth section told me that there's just been a youth hearing which took place on the 11th of March, and which served to elaborate youth policy recommendations regarding the post-COVID-19 era. Moreover, the topics youth and democracy, as well as gender equality, have been at the focus of the German EU presidency. And there were several conferences to include the voices of young women and men into our politics. For instance, we had a EU Youth Conference under the topic Europe for Youth and Youth for Europe, Space for Democracy and Participation. And it was held as a digital event last October. All in all, around 200 people from around 40 European countries took place. And the conference addressed all genders, but in the end, it was more women than, well, young women than men that were participating.
Thank you so much, Dr. Stephanie. Thank you. My next question is, how are girls and young women included in the decision-making process during the CSW and the Gender Equality Forum?
Yeah, thank you very much for the question. Germany has in fact a long tradition of including civil society delegates into our official German delegation to CSW, and there are always 2 youth delegates, which are included in the delegation. And it's the same this year. Of course, now it's a digital conference, so we try to arrange regular online briefings for the delegation and try to build up, a strong delegation, including the youth representatives. While on the one hand, I think it's very sad that we cannot travel to New York and we cannot have this, team building spirit. I think digital CSW is also a chance for people to participate that otherwise would have had, maybe not the money, not the time to travel to New York. And I think this is particularly important for young people, for young women. So I really hope that we can reach out to wider, wider participation of young women.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Stephanie. My next question will go back to Julia. Julia, it is often said that women continuously have to fight for the voices to be heard. As a young teenage activist, can you narrate your power struggle on the issues where you had to fight to stand out on the issue that concerned you? Give us an example of how, as a young teenage activist, of how girls like you have to fight for a seat at the table, if that makes sense.
Ok. Lo que más nos preocupa de las niñas indígenas es la participación, porque en Guatemala a las mujeres indígenas no se les toma en cuenta por por su traje, por ser mujer o por su idioma. También por que el racismo que existe en Guatemala no lo toman en cuenta en todos lados, pasa en las comunidades también. Uno siendo mujer no puede dar opiniones, no se les acepta las opiniones también. Eso es lo que nos preocupa más a las niñas indígenas también, porque acaba de mencionar de que siendo indígenas quieren que solo seamos madres y esposas desde temprana edad. Hay varias señoritas que ya los han obligado a casarse sin que ellos quieran. Eso es lo preocupante que pasa en mi país de Guatemala. Muchas gracias.
Thank you so much, Julia, for sharing your story. And I believe that this story doesn't only happen in our country, but mine as well, especially in the rural areas where, as a young person, culturally, you are not going to have something, you have to get married because culture and toxic masculinity and patriarchy actually forces you to get married at an early age because women do not deserve education in the patriarchy world. And I believe it's one of the issues that we have been fighting for in the country, to just harmonize the age of marriage to 21, where we believe that young girls are capable of making that decisions then, because now we have the dual legal system in the country, the traditional law and the constitutional law. The traditional law says a woman can only get married at puberty. So sometimes girls get at puberty at 12, 13. So it's kind of confusing and disturbing to just for a young girl, like a 13-year-old, get married at that tender age. But the Constitution then says a young girl can get married at the age of 18. So we're trying to harmonize the legal system in the country. So thank you for sharing your story. My next question will go to Rahil. Rahil, in your view, what are some of the contributing factors that has led to a low participation of women and girls at the decision-making level?
Oui, je dirais qu'il y a essentiellement deux choses qui empêchent la participation des filles et des jeunes femmes aux instances décisionnelles. Comme je le disais tantôt, il y a les politiques qui ne sont pas favorables à cela parce que il y a certes des décisions qui ont été prises pour favoriser la participation des femmes, du moins dans mon pays, mais ces décisions ne sont pas appliquées. Par exemple, au Togo, ici, nous avons la politique nationale de l'égalité et de l'équité genre. Et dans cette politique-là, on dit que les femmes et les hommes doivent être représentés équitablement sur une liste électorale. Mais on remarque en réalité, c'est une décision ou une loi qui n'est pas appliquée parce que lorsqu'un parti politique présente une liste qui n'est pas conforme à cette disposition-là, on accepte la liste quand même. Donc ça, c'est une cause qui ne favorise pas la participation de la femme. Et une autre cause qui est plus interne à la femme, c'est ce problème de confiance en soi ou le problème du fait qu'elle se demande si réellement elle a sa place à la table de décision. Parce que si vous grandissez dans un environnement qui vous enseigne qu'on doit tout décider pour vous et vous ne pouvez logiquement pas, suivant l'éducation que vous avez suivie, vous ne pouvez logiquement pas vous lever et dire que vous voulez participer aux décisions qui seront prises. Donc, pour moi, c'est deux choses essentiellement qui empêchent la participation des femmes. C'est un, les politiques qui ne sont pas appliquées, et deux, le problème de confiance en soi des filles ou des jeunes femmes liées aux normes et aux croyances sociales qui ont été transmises. Merci.
Thank you so much, Rahil, for mentioning that. And I believe it doesn't only happen in Togo, but in Lesotho and other African countries as well, and globally, because most of our African countries have ratified most of these international laws and regional laws, such as the CEDAW protocol, which allows for equal participation, but then the implementation is almost disheartening, to say the least. So thank you for raising these issues. My next question will go to Greta. Greta, we have had challenges that act as barriers for women participation. In your perspective, what are strategies that we need to put in place to ensure that women and girls participate equally in parliament?
Thank you. So I think the first step should be that we need a change of norms, mindsets, and attitudes, because youth participation needs to be seen as crucial and important for everyone. So this is very much on a personal and societal level. Then, as I said before, there needs to be the will to change something, because without it, it won't happen. And then most importantly, and also from the German context, there needs to be an institutionalization of youth participation. So what we've seen now with the Youth Council in the Ministry of Development, I hope to see this in all of the German ministries, because that is a certain way to ensure youth participation in an institutionalized way. And if we have this institutionalization, then youth participation does not depend upon personal will or political choice, but it is a safe given. And this would mean a lot for youth participation in Germany. And also, I think we should not only think about us youth working together, but all of the generations can work on this together. We should take an intersectional approach for working on this. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. The next question will be from Vodi. Vodi, as a young leader, what fuels you to be the voice of the voiceless, for speaking your truth and fighting for gender equality?
Because of my grandma, my mother, and my aunt. Yes, because in their generation, the lack of encouragement for them to become a leader. And in the last generation, as a woman, as a Cambodian woman, we only expect to be married, give a birth, and take care of the household. But for the decision, we only get it from the man who's made decision for us. And so about the consequence of the decision, as a woman, we have to accept it. That's the reason why I don't want to be a voiceless anymore. I want to give my voice to the public, to show what women can do, to show the limit, unlimited of women. And I hope that in the next generation, women, especially Cambodian women, they're gonna believe on their unlimited and do what they want to do without the decision made by the husband or the father.
Thank you, Vodi, for highlighting the need for autonomy and the need for women to speak out about that issues that affect them without men making the decisions for them. Ladies and gentlemen, we have heard from our distinguished guest panelists on the issues that affect women globally, the challenges that continuously act as structural barriers for women and girls to fully participate in parliament. And we have heard from our distinguished guests on the strategies that are put in place to mitigate those challenges. At this moment, I will welcome questions from the participants. And our first question is from Rose from Togo. Rose. Rose, your question. There's a first question from the audience. It says, when will the BMFSFJ implement its own youth advisory panel? The question is addressed to Ms. Schweikart.
Yes, I think I will have to answer that. Obviously, I'm not Ms. Schweikart, but as I'm from the same ministry, I guess I can say something to it. Well, my colleagues from the youth section told me that we already have an advisory council, which includes youth organizations, and they're debating the youth strategy. From my own field of work, I already said that we work together with youth delegates in CSW, but I'm also responsible to have a look at the German participation on the Action Coalition on Economic Rights and Justice in the Global Gender Equality Forum. And in this context, we also work together with youth organizations, and two youth organizations, for instance, Monkey Manroa from Cameroon and Nanya from Panama. They're included in the leadership structure of the Action Coalition, and their representatives are also included in all our events. For instance, in the side event that the Action Coalition is doing at the CSW. And they are also included in the entire decision-making structure of the gender equality process.
The next question is, are there any formal international discussion about setting up such youth forum in government? I'm in the US and wondered if there is some dialogue between these countries. Please.
Not exactly sure if that question is addressed to me as well.
Okay. I'm sorry, I'm having difficulties. Hello, Francisca.
Yes, we can hear you well. Hi, everyone. This is Franziska from Plan International Germany. I think the last question is well suited for either Stephanie or Heike, if that's okay. If there's any cooperation between governments on youth participation.
Okay. If I may, I can come in. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, okay. So first, I would like to refer what our colleague from the other ministry has said on this advisory board on the youth strategy, because for more than 2 years I was part of it. So we have a ongoing dialogue within the federal government, as also the colleague already said it. We discuss youth issues on the European level on a constant basis, but also on international level. And what was said here also, having young advisors within the delegation. We have this also when we have negotiations of the 2030 agenda. So there is an ongoing dialogue also with other like donors, with an international organization. We are bringing in these issues very much on many levels, also from our point of you with the international development banks who have a lot of money to distribute to developing countries, and we are asking strongly also for having youth voices in and youth perspectives in these if we decide on programs or projects. So there is an ongoing dialogue would be the answer.
Okay, thank you. The next question says, I am Natalie from ID. Thank you for this interesting meeting. My question is for the youth activist. What is your biggest challenge as an activist? Do you feel listened or understood in your environment? So any youth activist can answer to this question.
If you don't mind, then I would start, but please follow up on me. So I think one of the challenges is what I've already said, that we're being taken seriously. So it's not enough to be active and doing maybe some nice actions that are very visible, but that these demands that are transmitted through these actions are actually being considered by politics. So that's not just, okay, we're seeing what you're doing, but we're actually not really thinking about what you actually want. So I think that's like the major issue that we still have to overcome, that we achieve this step of being on an equal level with the politicians and that they actually listen to our demands and follow up on this.
Okay, thank you so much. Julia, do you want to add on something? Do you feel listened to, especially as a 19-year-old indigenous young person? Do you feel listened to? Do you feel like your voice can make a difference?
Bueno,
Okay.
Sí, bueno, los grandes desafíos que pasamos aquí en mi país es el machismo. No toman en cuenta la participación de los jóvenes, el patriarcado en los hombres que hace dominar a la mujer y no lo deja, o no le permite a la mujer participar ni tomar en cuenta sus opiniones, sus ideas que la mujer tiene. Esos son los grandes desafíos que pasa la juventud aquí en Guatemala. También la falta de participación, porque en debido casos no permiten la participación de los jóvenes en cualquier actividad, sino que tiene que ser un adulto de mayor de 25 años. Muchas gracias.
Thank you so much. Rahil, do you want to add something?
Oui, merci beaucoup. Lorsque vous évoquez l'écoute par la communauté, moi, je le vois en un grand échelle et en une petite échelle. Lorsque vous nous demandez si on est écouté par la communauté, je dirais que lorsque c'est par les politiques, donc les gens qui ont vraiment le pouvoir décisionnaire, c'est assez difficile parce que, étant jeune, on nous considère comme des inexpérimentés. Lorsqu'on parle, nos voix ne portent pas vraiment. Mais à un plus bas échelle, je considère la communauté ici comme peut-être l'environnement immédiat, là où tu vis avec les gens. Et lorsque tu portes, par exemple, un projet ou une idée d'activité ou une idée de changement, il faudrait que toi-même, tu sois d'abord un modèle de changement pour pouvoir porter un certain nombre de discours. Donc, pour pouvoir être écouté par cette communauté immédiate-là, je pense qu'en réalité, il faudrait que la personne même qui porte l'idée soit un modèle de réussite ou du moins un modèle de réussite en devenir pour que la voix porte et que la communauté écoute. Sinon, sans cela, je pense que la communauté elle-même ne voyant pas le changement en la personne qui porte l'idée ne voudra pas forcément écouter. Donc, pour moi, la communauté ici s'analyse en les politiques et également en la communauté immédiate que nous sommes censés changer par notre comportement ou par la personne que l'on incarne. Merci.
Thank you so much. Our next question from the audience is, what is your biggest success, best experience with youth participation? The question is, what is your biggest success, best experience with youth participation? And Vodi, can you try to answer that?
Thank you, Mamilo. What is my biggest success and best experience with youth participation? Right now, my biggest success, because I own a Facebook page called My Blank Page. Yes, I do a video about the story of famous women around the world, and I got a lot of got a lot of thank message from people who watched my video. They thank me to make them see the world more bigger and to believe in themselves. To show them as a girl, they can do many things that they can. And for second question, my best experience with youth participation was when I joined a sharing session in province of Cambodia. That time, I and my team in Young Women Leadership Network, we want to share about what we want to share. Example, as me, I share about how I can got scholarship to study in abroad. And many youth, they're very interested in it, especially women, because they told me that they really want to go to study abroad, but because of their family, their father, their brother told them that as a woman, you could not go to study abroad and it's not safe for you. But after they heard my story, they're gonna go to tell her family that she know a woman who can go to study abroad and be safe.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Greta, would you like to add something on the previous question? What is your biggest success?
Yes, so I don't think it is a personal success, but more in the context of Plan Germany, because I've been a member in the Youth Council for quite a long time now, and I can just see the process of us being seen as an equal partner within that organization, which I think is just very encouraging to see that we are taken seriously and that what we demand is actually not only good, but it has to be realized. And I think this is very promising, and it just shows us that if we can do it in this context, then we can also do it maybe on a national level, international level. So this is just a very hopeful reminder every time.
Thank you so much. The next question from the audience is, what kind of structures would help you feel like your voice is ahead? What kind of structures would help you feel like your voices are heard? Raheel, would you love to attempt that question? Raheel?
Oui, en termes de structure au Togo, je pourrais parler de l'existence du Conseil national de la jeunesse où des jeunes y militent. Et ils ont, en tant que Conseil national de la jeunesse, ils ont cette facilité-là d'approcher beaucoup plus les espaces décisionnels. Et il y a des sessions de questions ou bien de préoccupations qui sont lancées par ce Conseil national de la jeunesse-là pour recueillir les besoins et les avis des organisations de jeunes sur un certain nombre de questions. Et ce Conseil national de la jeunesse est donc chargé de porter ces voix-là au niveau des espaces décisionnels. Donc, c'est un espace ou bien c'est un organe qui a été créé et que nous estimons est de nature à pouvoir donner de l'espace d'expression pour les jeunes en termes de pouvoir atteindre les espaces ou bien les pouvoirs pour pouvoir changer les choses. Merci.
Okay. Our next question is from Rose. Rose says, in relation to parental support, the problem in my country is a problem of norm and beliefs. I would love to know how the girls and young people who are intervened as activists were able to reach the level they are today. Thank you. Rose is asking that in her community, a problem is norms and beliefs, and she would love to know from the activists who are our panelists today, what extent or what measures did they do to reach the level that they are today? So, Julia, would you love to attempt to that question?
Bueno, lo que hemos hecho de las creencias en todas las comunidades indígenas de Guatemala, toda la familia, más las abuelitas, si tienen una creencia de que siendo mujer uno no puede hacer nada, siendo joven no está capacitado para eso. Lo que hemos hecho es dejar un lado estas creencias y hacer, alzar nuestra voz para que seamos escuchadas, dejando a un lado el machismo, defendiéndonos de todo tipo de violencia. Hemos trabajado muy duro por nuestros derechos, por nuestra igualdad de género. Los estereotipos siempre existen, pero lo hemos dejado por un lado, lo hemos olvidado un poco de estos estereotipos y hacer posible llegar a ser un activista. Muchas gracias.
Thank you so much, Julia, for your input. And may Vodi, can you try to answer Rose's question? Vodi?
Yes, Mamilo. Okay. The problem of norm and belief. For me, in my country, it is one of the biggest challenge for women. As I said before, because in our country, we have a book called Babstray in Khmer, or in English, it's called Law of Women. What women should be. We should only take care household, give the birth, and marry, and also take care our parent and our and husband parent. But in my experience, when in last 3 years ago, I tried to break this social norm and belief by I spend my time, most of my time, talk to my family about what I want to do. And also promise them that I'm gonna bring them the result in 2 years to make them believe in what I'm believing. And also, I share this method to some of my friends they have problems with their family about gender stereotype. and the communicate don't so well in Cambodia. I think that even in Cambodia, age also is a problem for us because young people, we don't expect to teach older people what they need to do or show them, speak out what we want to be. But about myself, at that time I have conflict with my family, but I show them that it is not what I told you, it's not I take you what I want you to be, but it just the communicate from a young woman who's want to show about her voice to family to know and to understand her. I don't have any experience with much experience with social norm with external people or other people. I only have experience with my family I saw it by communication.
Thank you, Vodi. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Allow me to pass my sincere gratitude to our dear panelists who shared with us today issues concerning women political participation in the country, and a heartfelt gratitude to Dr. Stephanie, Dr. Kuhn, and Dr. Shekhar. Thank you so much for joining us today and taking time out of your busy schedule to share with us your stories of inspiration. And I really believe that what the panelists have shared with us today, the challenges that we continuously face as young women in terms of occupying seats at the decision-making level will be taken into consideration. And I really do believe the good work that the German Republic of Germany has been doing, and I really believe it will impact developing countries like ours who are really struggling to achieve gender equality despite having numerous frameworks to achieve gender equality. Thank you so much. And I'd also like to thank our attendees today for your contributions and listening and enjoying this live session. Thank you so much. Thank you to the Plan International Germany, Francisca, Lara. Thank you so much for putting in this wonderful session today. Thank you so much. Thank you.